Okay, everybody, welcome. Welcome to A Mexican State of Mind, Migrant Creatives in New York City. This program is being offered in English and Spanish with simultaneous interpretation. So first, I'd like to introduce our translator, Maria Sigourney, who will explain how to use this feature.
Good
Maria?
afternoon. Hi, I'm your interpreter for today. If you need to, if you're not bilingual, you'll probably need this to activate the interpretation settings. And for that, when they activate it, you will see a little globe at the bottom of your phone or your computer. You'll click there, and then you will choose the language that you need to hear, either English or Spanish. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos. Va a haber interpretación el día de hoy. Mi nombre es María y voy a estar interpretando para ustedes cuando activen la función de para poder escuchar en otro idioma de interpretación. Pueden buscar un globo que va a estar en la parte de abajo. Pueden presionar ahí y pueden escoger el idioma al que quieren escuchar, ya sea inglés o español. Recuerden, si tienen que hacer preguntas, pueden hablar en español y yo puedo traducir en inglés. ¿Ok? Gracias.
Okay, thank you so much, Maria. Now to the audience, welcome once again, and please note that your microphones have been muted upon entry, though you can control your video camera. You can also use the live transcript closed captioning option, which is in English only, at the bottom of your screen. This is provided through AI by Zoom, so it's not live. It is automatic. And we invite you to type your questions and comments in the chat throughout the program, and they will be addressed at the end of the program by myself and my colleague, Olivia. So once again, welcome to A Mexican State of Mind, Migrant Creatives in New York City. I'm Saralinda Lichtblau, Hudson River Museum Assistant Director, Education, and this afternoon we are so excited to join Dr. Melissa Castillo Planas, author of A Mexican State of Mind, New York City and the New Borderlands of Culture, alongside Mexican MCs Juan Carlos Romero and Audrey Funk, for a virtual discussion of Mexican creativity in New York City. The book explores the cultural and creative lives of the largely young, undocumented Mexican population in New York City since September 11th, 2001. This book is based on 10 years of fieldwork with members of a vibrant community of Mexican migrants, focusing on youth culture, including hip hop, graffiti, muralism, labor activism, arts entrepreneurship, and collective making. The spoken word poets will perform their work and talk with Dr. Castillo Planas about how it has been to be a Mexican artist in New York City during the COVID-19 pandemic, after which we'll open up for questions from the audience. This program, in conjunction with Border Cantos' Sonic Border, Richard Misrach, Guillermo Galindo, which is on view in the Hudson River Museum through May 9th, 2021, was developed in collaboration with the Mexican Studies Institute at the City University of New York, Lehman College, with support provided by Art Bridges. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Melissa Castillo Planas, an assistant professor of English at Lehman College in the Bronx, specializing in Latinx literature and culture. She is the author of the poetry collection Cuatlicue Eats the Apple, editor of the anthology Mantecal, an anthology of Afro-Latin poets, co-editor of La Verdad, an international dialogue on hip-hop Latinidades, and co-author of the novel Pure Bronx. Her most recent book project with Rutgers University Press's new Global Race and Media series from March 2020, A Mexican State of Mind, New York City and the New Borderlands of Culture, examines the creative worlds and cultural productions of Mexican migrants in New York City. Her second book of poetry, Chingona Rules, is forthcoming with Finishing Line Press in summer 2021. And now I turn the program over to Melissa Castillo Planas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saralinda and Hudson River Museum for inviting me to speak and to share in this conversation with Juan Carlos and Audrey Funk, two of the people who really inspired the work of this book, right? Juan Carlos, I don't want to put out how long I've met you because it ages me too much, right? But you know, known you for a very long time, Audrey Funk, many years as well at this point. It's been wonderful to collaborate with both of you in different ways throughout the years. So I'm just gonna share my screen and show you a little bit of the broader view of the book, and then we can get into the specifics of Juan Carlos and Audrey Funk's work that they'll share with you. So let me just share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to start with a story about Raul Mckernan. This was actually JC's cousin, right? So I had been working at the Orchard restaurant for a few months in the summer of 2010 before I would have a real conversation with Raul Hernandez, then 29, the bartender from our sister restaurant 2 blocks away. Raul would walk over to the Orchard, an Italian restaurant in the Lower East Side of New York City, to stock the bar at the smaller Appice restaurant, which lacked storage space. One night after work, I stopped by at the invite of the manager, Diego, a Mexican immigrant from Mexico City, for a drink and a bite. As Raul expertly prepared one of the restaurant's signature cocktails and delivered a delicious prosciutto flatbread, the conversation meandered into music. "Do you like hip hop?" Raul asked. "Sure," I said. In reality, I did not. "Do you want to hear a song?" he asked after the last customers trickled out. As he played me a track, I found myself surprised both by the classic sound and style of golden era New York rap, as well as the lyrical and sonic rejection of reggaeton. It had never occurred to me that amidst the soundscapes of the Caribbean, Latinx, and African American New York was an emerging Mexican migrant conscious hip hop voice. What I heard was a Spanish language rap that wove together Spanish Chicanismos like Holmes with a clear connection between a devotion to hip hop and national pride. Moreover, I was surprised that this professional, lyrically expressive, sonically tight sound was produced by the man who had earlier served me a drink. Not because I looked down on restaurant work. This was a major part of my life for 12 years while I was an undergraduate, master's, and doctoral student, to the extent that I even considered a career in hospitality. Rather, I realized that even as a Mexican American in New York City who worked with Mexicans every weekend, I never thought of them as imaginative people with creative aspirations. While the mainly white fellow managers, waiters, bartenders, and guests often asked me to my annoyance whether I was an aspiring actor, dancer, or model, the back of the house, largely staffed by Black and brown immigrants, was never afforded this type of consideration. I never afforded them this type of consideration. A Mexican State of Mind is about Raul and those who join us today, JC, Romero, and Audrey Funk, and other young Mexican migrants' creative lives in New York City after 9/11. In addition to introducing Mexican cultural productions outside the traditional Southwest, US-Mexico border, or California context, this book marks a period when Mexicans start to become a significant population in New York City. Between 1990 and 2011, for example, the Mexican population increased 443%, from around 62,000 to over 335,000, according to the New York City Department of City Planning, and became the 3rd largest immigrant group. Due to the large undercount of undocumented Mexican migrants, however, these estimates range to 600,000, a demographic size developed by the Latino Data Project. Significantly, this has made New York City one of the top 15 cities in concentration of Mexicans in the US, joining cities in Texas and California. So usually we think, right, what are cities with lots of Mexicans? Los Angeles, El Paso. Well, now we have to start talking about New York City, right? At the same time, the aftermath of 9/11 in terms of anti-immigrant sentiment and increased security and surveillance of bodies of color specifically shaped the experiences of young men and women in this study who find themselves to be increasingly racialized and criminalized over the past 18 years. Nevertheless, rather than investigating anti-immigrant policies or looking at labor issues, this book takes all of that as a backdrop in order to emphasize other aspects of their New York City experience, specifically the artistic and innovative and imaginative ways Mexican migrants fill their lives, right? More than hobbies, Music and art represent the ways in which Mexicans in New York City articulate their sense of culture, fulfill their need for creative expression, and protest the status quo built on daily migrant marginalization based on real or perceived documentation status and racialized systems of employment and criminal justice. In addition, by highlighting creativity over employment, the arts over immigration status, this book shed lights on the way Mexicans, especially undocumented migrants, are not often seen as creative people, right? So while right now in the media, right, we see images of all these, immigrants and, this language of invasion and surge, right? Is anyone asking, what are their dreams, right? What do they want to do with their lives, right? Especially, when people migrate, right? What other aspirations do they have besides labor, right? This is especially significant in a New York City Mexican context, because even though Mexicans are seen as the representative, problematic, racialized immigrant in both current and longstanding climate of anti-immigrant sentiment, they are often seen as out of place in New York City. Despite its status as the multicultural capital of the world and historic immigrant gateway via Ellis Island, in New York, Mexicans are still seen as insignificant newcomers, if at all. So, for example, despite Mexicans having lived in New York City since actually at least the 1920s, only is there representation in the New York City Council recently with the election of Carlos Menchaca, who's the first person of Mexican descent to represent the Mexican community and their interests, right? And that's only one person, right? Out of a population, again, 600,000. To kind of compare it to other Latino populations, Puerto Ricans are around 700,000 and Dominicans are around 700,000, right? But Mexicans do not have that same kind of foothold despite their large numbers. So upon arrival, Mexicans concentrate in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, right? I think we're almost representing all of these today. I live in Brooklyn. Audrey lives in the Bronx. JC lives in the Bronx now, but was living in Queens, right? So, we have that spread here. And Mexican immigrant households are more likely to experience overcrowding and spend more than half their income on rent than those of any other immigrant group or native-born population. And the reason why Mexican migrants spend way more on rent than any other population is because they are the most marginalized population out of any immigrant or non-immigrant group. Here's a statistic that always really gets to me. Mexicans work the longest hours of anyone in New York City. Again, any non-immigrant or immigrant group, yet they are the poorest. They are the lowest paid. So, something is not adding up, right, in terms of opportunities for Mexican migrants, who again have to live in cramped spaces. And that's a lot of what my book is about. When you have limited space, when you're sharing spaces and so much of your money goes to rent and other acts of survival, how do you still carve out space for your creative outlets, for your creative aspirations, right? So Audrey and JC, right, like Raul, who started this story, and the other young Mexican men and women who now breathe life into my book, taught me so much. And not just about hip hop, right? They did teach me a lot about hip hop and to actually even like hip hop, right? As I said, I wasn't a big fan in the beginning, but about the ways in which Mexicans are viewed and approached, even by liberal-minded Mexican American scholars such as myself, right? How do we imagine migrant lives, right? How do we even think about them? Do we afford them the same kind of 3D consideration, right? That we do, other populations. They opened my eyes to a vibrant, young Mexican, largely undocumented migrant community dedicated to creative expression in music and art, particularly the hip hop arts, as a critical part of their New York City experience. Their stories revealed the ways Mexicans are not seen as creative peoples in New York City today and the implications of these narrow perspectives. So in A Mexican State of Mind, just to wrap up, you'll find a version of global Mexicanidad or Mexicanness that complicates dominant portrayals of rural workers or immigration statistics. Rather, I present a vision of a Mexican community as young, edgy, creative actors for whom hip hop serves as a connection to both New York and their Mexican culture. Although the people I write about are quite distinct, they all speak to the significance of creativity in the communities they are making. Whether in service to a hemispheric feminist politics, an individual form of self-expression to cope with depression and substance abuse, or a community building form of economic liberation, these young men and women narrate a path that imagines a radical new world of Mexican migrant creativity and self-acceptance. So that's the end of my little presentation. And now we're gonna transition to conversation or really some presentations first and then a conversation, right? So now I wanna turn it over to Audrey Funk. So I feel like I've known you forever, but it's been a couple years. I believe we met through some of the collectives and organizations, right, that I was working with. And what stood out to me about Audrey Funk was a couple things. One was that a community was largely male dominated, right? And so this was a powerful woman, coming in, making her presence known, getting on stage, commanding the audience, right? And so it was great. It was great to see and to get a woman's perspective. There weren't there were a couple other women in the book, but none really as powerful as Audrey. And so she really helped me to address gender dynamics in the book. And another thing that struck me as I started to talk with her more and learn more about her was that she's someone who has just had an amazing, phenomenal career, a long, distinguished career, traveling throughout Latin America to Europe and doing a lot of organizing work, really impressive organizing work, organizing women MCs, women collectives, all throughout Latin America in order to make not just hip hop a space for women, but to talk about patriarchy and feminism in a larger context, right? So hip hop is her weapon, right? But that she's not just trying to decolonize or undo the patriarchy in hip hop. She has a much wider message than that, right? And now at this point, after so many years, we've even done some writing together. So without further ado, let me introduce Audrey, the great Audrey Funk, and let her share a little bit of her story.
Hey, hello. Thank you, Melissa. You always talk about me. Very nice, very kind. Thank you very much. The love, I give you love back because I really appreciate you. And also, I love your work because we, as a Mexican woman, we have to, support each other. That's something that I really, really love about the Mexican community that is really social active here. Like we are trying to understand how to support each other as a community. Plus, we as a woman, like coming into this, country, I think we need to to take away a lot of things like the patriarchy give us to have a life. So okay, yeah. So I'm Audrey Funk. I'm from Puebla, Mexico. I was born and raised in Mexico. I've been building my career in Mexico, but then now I live here in the Bronx, as Melissa told. I have here now 8 years. Actually, I know you since 8 years. I know. Sometimes I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting old. And it was amazing because actually Hard Life Inc. was the first Mexican art collective who brought me to have a concert here, right? So I went to Hard Life Inc. In that time they were in Brooklyn, so I have a concert there. Actually, I met my husband because of them, right? He was working with another collective named Vida Urbana. They have a hip hop radio station in Spanish. So everything was very like crazy how I get to be here in New York, but also how migration has been, going through my whole body and my whole experience as an artist. No, like I always have like a lot of like barriers to break where as a woman in this scene of hip hop music and hip hop culture, right? Because we have been all life, like since the hip hop begins, women were there, but we are not like taking like really like we don't have the place that we deserve, right? So in Mexico is the same. So I've been fighting a lot of like, you know, organizing collectives. I was part of the first female collective in Mexico that only not only MCs. We made a lot of like a collective work with hip hop culture, like graffiti, breakdance, all that, but with women. So we were the first collective, I guess, in Mexico, but I can maybe in Latin America, I don't know. But then I start to organize with another Ecuadorian friend, another Latin American collective with women now. And then I work alongside Rebecca Lane from Guatemala. We create this collective called Somos Guerreras, because we also want to break those barriers about Central American people having good connection with Mexican people, because that is something that we have to talk about, how Mexican people is so racist with Central American people because of migration, right? So we decide to talk about these things through our hip hop. So our hip hop is the tool to talk about also like women right, of course, but also how migration has affected my life. I think I always say it's like as a trauma that never goes away. Only you can handle it, right? And you always miss your everything, but also you have to face another things. Like for example, as Melissa said, it's crazy how the people here, they don't look Mexican as a creatives. I have been receiving a lot of like compliments, I guess, because they think they're compliments, like, oh, I don't even know Mexican people can do that, no? And I was like, wow, thank you. I don't even know you can say that as a good, like as a good thing, right? So that's why I love to work with Melissa, because we can stand for Mexican people. That, by the way, we are a lot here. Plus, we are a lot from my hometown, from Puebla, right? We also we call this Puebla York, right? I've been writing for a magazine from from Mexico, and here the name is Puebla York magazine, and I talk about like a lot of Poblanos who are doing great job here through the arts, right? So that is important, because we have to pronounce our name, you know, in our communities, and then we exist. Because if we don't pronounce the things, we don't gonna have existence in a very like deep way. We're not here only for serve your food or for clean your house, and that is not bad. Okay, I don't want to say that is a bad thing, because they are honest people trying to have a better life, right? But we also can do a lot of other things than be just like uh money producers, right? We can produce our money, we can produce our wealth through art, through another things, like through the going to the university, have a better life, have a better opportunity, because we have enough like knowledge and good things inside of us. So that's me, that's Audrey Funk, that's what I think, and I don't know, that's it. Eh, I think I have to perform two songs, right? Some songs, yeah. So okay, so this is my music. My music is completely in Spanish. I'm getting better in English. I feel very proud, because it's being hard. That is another thing. It's hardcore to be a migrant. They have to talk in another language. So, well, my music is in Spanish, and I wanna first I'm gonna present. I don't even release this song, but the name is Barrio y Diaspora, hood and diaspora. And I always say I'm a hood feminism. I love hood feminism because that is where I work, right? I come from the academy. Yeah, I have my degree. I is in philosophy in Mexico and whatever, but I always do my actions in the hood because that is important. So, Barrio y Diaspora, it's like we are here and we're not going anywhere because we are here already. This is our house too. This is our home too. So, Barrio y Diaspora for everybody here. Gracias a todas y a todos. En mi barrio todos somos de colores, tenemos diferentes flows y sabores. Somos Torre de Babel, mezcal, cacao, malta pa' calor pesado. En mi barrio todos somos de colores, tenemos diferentes flows y sabores. Somos Torre de Babel, mezcal, cacao, malta pa' calor pesado. En mi barrio Broken English les traemos, venimos de las islas, de los sures, sus extremos, hablamos con sabores, nos inventamos la receta de existencia, pa' burlar tanta carencia, racializada es porque así lo dijo el juez, sistema pálido que te trata tal como te ves, pero no saben que de este lado, la lupita, amuleto de los santos, nos protegen de lo malo, aunque nos cuestione lo humano, seguimos siendo quien produce. Si nosotros nada fluye, el mundo es de quien lo construye, de la historia no se huye. Sac pase, que lo que, hey, ¿qué fue? We say hi, si no puedes understand, no escogimos Babilón, nos rifamos fuera del cantón, diaspo resistiendo, somos eslabón.
Cada quien desde lo que es, porque no se trata de copiar, cada quien viene de tierras diferentes, tenemos sueños diferentes.
En mi barrio todos somos de colores, tenemos diferentes flows y sabores. Somos Torre de Babel, mezcal, cacao, malta pa' calor pesado. En mi barrio todos somos de colores, tenemos diferentes flows y sabores. Somos Torre de Babel, mezcal, cacao, malta pa' calor pesado. Aquí sobre el estilo, seguimos el camino, también nos divertimos, vida tiene sentido, no confiar del malanteo, son pruebas básicas para acumular trofeos, me causas lo mismo que Morfeo, yo me mareo, con tanta mala vibra pa' lo santo quemo, un ron por ti me he hecho, celebramos las culturas, no quieren vernos, una moneda al aire para acumular respetos.
Organizarnos, ¿verdad? Hacer algo diferente ante esto que está acabando. Buscar formas de cómo nos vamos a ir reconstruyendo, ya sea pueblo, ciudad, barrio, colonia, donde estemos.
En mi barrio todos somos de colores, tenemos diferentes flows y sabores. Somos Torre de Babel, mezcal, cacao, malta pa' calor pesado. En mi barrio todos somos de colores, tenemos diferentes flows y sabores. Somos Torre de Babel, mezcal, cacao, malta pa' calor pesado. Thank you very much. That was good. Woo, it's new, so I think I know the lyrics now. Well, so the next song, I wrote this song because in this culture they always say there is an only way to be a woman, right? Like aesthetic or whatever. Like you have to be very, you have to be beautiful, white, skinny, no? Like that is the only thing you are beautiful in this world. But I think like that is bullshit. I'm sorry. Yes, because it's not important. That's not important. You're beautiful in the way you are. You have to decolonize the way you see your body. You have to decolonize the way you see the beauty, the beautiness, because there is a lot of diversity in this world, also in women. And this is only a big plan from capitalism to make you feel bad, and then you can buy everything, and then you can spend your money to be better and to be, I don't know, in their standards. But I say like, you know what, I'm gonna do this reggaeton de colonial because it's important. The only thing that belongs to you is your body, and everybody say that it is not true, but that is yours. That is yours. You own your body. You can do whatever you want with it, and you have to take care of it in a bunch of sense. Not only like go to the gym and that thing, that is your option, but take care about yourself, right? Take your self-care in a way, like the soul and everything. So that's why I wrote this, because all these standards make me sick. So the name of the song is Me Pertenece. It belongs to me. My body is mine. So if you want to dance in your chairs, let's perrear. That is the name. Es Audrey Funk desde México y el Bronx. Para todos los cuerpos posibles, para todos. y todas, escuchen esto. Dice: estas carnes de mujer pesada, nunca más que flow, por eso estoy sobrada. Sin complejos ni ataduras, muevo lo poco que tengo de cintura. Me bajo lentamente, sube la temperatura, ¿me entendiste? A mí me valen verga tus estereotipos de blanquita europea. Estamos decolonizando tus ideas. No lo hago para ti, lo hago para que todas puedan. Sin complejos, no te avergüences. Todo eso es tuyo, muévelo, te pertenece. Sin complejos, no te avergüences, muévelo, eso es tuyo, te pertenece. Liberar la mente para liberar el cuerpo. Con todas mis girls vengo a cortar tu ego. Mi manada elijo primero, jamás tu opinión, eso está de más culero. Aquí vine a recordarte cada mañana como mantra, dale que dale, lo buena que tú estás, lo guapa que tú eres. Comentarios ruines, mi gran culo lo reviente. Sin complejos, no te avergüences, todo eso es tuyo, muévelo, te pertenece. Sin complejos, no te avergüences, todo eso es tuyo, muévelo, te pertenece. Si desde niña te decían que estuvieras quieta, o te llamaban gorda o muy flaca en la escuela, familia tóxica jodiendo con la dieta, que palabras del pasado ya no te hieran. Esta piel en la que habitas no tiene problema, el problema es de otros, nuestra libertad molesta. No tienen derecho a opinar sobre la cuerpa ajena, aquí bailamos a nuestra manera. Ahora sí, para abajo de sus casas. Sin complejos, no te avergüences, todo eso es tuyo, muévelo, te pertenece. Sin complejos, no te avergüences, todo eso es tuyo, muévelo, te pertenece. Sin complejos, no te avergüences, todo eso es tuyo, muévelo, te pertenece. Sin complejos, no te avergüences, todo eso es tuyo, muévelo, te pertenece. It's your body, move your booty. It's yours. Te pertenece, te pertenece. Ensayando flow pa' que vean cómo se hace. Thank you. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, I love hearing you every time. I can't wait till it's in person again. Hopefully soon, right? The world's opening back up. So you came to Lehman and did an amazing performance for the Latinx Student Alliance.
Yes.
I loved it so much. And the administrators that came were like, how did you get her? Okay, so our next presenter performer is JC Romero. So I was actually thinking, I think I met JC in like 2007 or 2008 when I was a master's student, and I worked with his cousin, who actually, was the first person to really introduce me to the, the Mexican hip hop scene in New York. And then later, JC and I worked together for a time at one of the restaurants in the Lower East Side. But I will never forget the nights. I was home. I had recently started my doctoral studies at Yale, and I came home to visit New York, and JC and I met up at an Occupy Wall Street protest. And we walked and talked for hours, and he just broke down in the most amazing way all these connections between labor and immigration, restaurant work that we're both involved in, and the way that marginalizes immigrants in particular, the way immigrants are racialized, and how that affects labor issues. And I remember I had an assignment due, and I went back to Connecticut, and I was like, throwing everything away. I have to start over, based on what, JC really opened my eyes to. And, even as a restaurant, worker, these were some issues, I hadn't thought about. And since then, I've just been so proud to watch JC just moved through the world as a really committed activist and organizer. I eventually sat down and got out the list of organizations that he's worked with and for. It's in the book. I don't have it memorized because it's too many, but he's worked on labor issues. It's taken him all across the country, doing organizing for different groups that have been marginalized. And then also, you know, cultivating his art in different ways, you know, through dance, through MC, through all sorts of different ways. So I will let him take over, but that's a little bit about how I met JC.
Well, first of all, buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon, everybody. Very happy, honored to be here. Thank you, Audrey and Melissa, both just for recapping the book, and Audrey, an amazing performance. Always makes me want to reggaetonear cuando escucho tu canción. So thank you for that. Just a little bit about my background. I was born in Puebla, Mexico, and migrated to the United States when I was 2 years old. My parents brought me over, and through a series of events, went back and forth about 3 times. And one time I actually was able to fly to the United States under somebody else's name. And it was a great experience to see sort of like the different way people, like, you know, I remember I was 7 years old, and I remember just thinking like, wow, this is how people get to travel and migrate on planes, like comparing it to like other experiences that I've had, you know, walking through the desert and you know, just running from you know, border patrol at gunpoint at 9 years old. Just seeing that sort of like different way people lived was really, I believe, like Audrey said, very traumatic, but also very sort of left a deep sort of print in my life. And I carry that with me as something that I don't think everybody goes through, but it's definitely a lot of people do go through as well. Probably things that are worse when they're migrating. So yeah, basically, you know, growing up in the Bronx, like the book talks about, my cousin and I, we both lived in Queens and the Bronx, and very different also lifestyles that sort of we were able to have growing up in these different boroughs. But definitely the Bronx was definitely very impactful as well to sort of my love for hip hop, and just, you know, every day going to school. I actually walked like 2 blocks to school, but even then I would like hear the cars bumping in, you know, the bodegas. And so it was, you know, I started to love it. And actually English is my second language. So one of the ways I also started to learn English was just like listening to music and like regurgitating it, writing it down, and then just trying to practice that way. And that hip hop was like very, I guess, in those times, a lot of Nas, Biggie. It was hip hop. I think that it was for me easier to understand, like the mumble rap that happens nowadays. I don't think I could be able to do that with mumble rap, but back in the days, like hip hop was a little bit more pronounced, and so that definitely was a great way to sort of fall in love with that, and also to slowly start to understand, look back in the dictionary and sort of compare words and see that these people were talking about similar situations that I was growing up in. And so definitely was, you know, I carried it with me, even though some of the songs I didn't understand, and you know, ended up back in Mexico, and actually in 1998. And at that time, I was just, as I was migrating back to Mexico, I saw how hip hop also traveled with me to Mexico. And at that time, the kids from the neighborhood were really into breakdancing. And so was I. I was actually pretty young and very flexible. And so I was like trying out new moves, and we were able to buy like this like plywood and like do like moves on it. And so it was really interesting to see that. And at that time, Mexican groups were also starting to come out with hip hop. And so it was really interesting to see and hear songs now that I could understand and really bump to. And like, it was just, there's like a fire that was growing that really, you know, made me feel identified and sort of gave me this sort of feeling of, you know, like home is not necessarily, you know, one place. Like there's, you know, the Bronx is my home, Puebla City is my home. I also grew up in Richmond. That's also my home. And, you know, it's fast forwarding to a couple years ago, like really learning about my indigenous roots. Definitely understanding that, like, the turtle, right? It moves around with its shelf, and that's its home. And so I think as migrants, we also we do that in a way, you know, wherever we go, we carry home. And so New York, definitely, like Audrey said, Puebla York is definitely my home. And you know, now I'm a recently we had a daughter. My wife and I had a daughter, and so my daughter as well. She's hopefully she's able to call home a lot of parts of, you know, wherever she travels to, because yeah, I think it's a lot of construct as well. I think it's like decolonizing like our mentalities and understanding that a lot of things were made up, all these borders, all these nations, all these divisions were intentionally made. And so trying to break that down in a sense. But I'm gonna jump into one of the first songs I wrote, and it just talks about what Melissa kind of was talking about. Definitely work was definitely a big part of my life, and it still is. I am actually currently organizing workers, and I've been doing that for the past 11 years. And I realized that, you know, when talking to workers, realize that we spend a lot of, as immigrants or as Mexican immigrants, like Melissa pointed out, we spend a lot of time at our works, at our jobs, sometimes more than our homes and with our families. So it becomes like a second home. But it's also, you know, very, very exploitative place. It could be very, very stressful, and, you know, the effects of that kind of lifestyle, you know, could lead to alcoholism, could lead to, you know, abuse, you know, and in many forms. And so one of the first songs that I wrote was about that, and how as a very young person, 17 years old, I was already working 7 days a week, very long hours. And so it was really frustrating, but it was also, you know, it was seeing people that were much older doing that really made me see how resilient our people are. And I don't think that should be the standard, but, you know, it keeps me fighting for hopefully, you know, shorter hours, better pay, and more benefits. That would be my goal for our communities. But here goes one of the first songs, and hope you all enjoy. Yeah, check out this one. Yeah, ahí les va. Si es que tú no sabes, deja, tomo el tiempo para explicarte. Matter of fact, te voy a llevar a un lugar. I'ma tell you about my blog. Get it started with a humble heart back in the humble parts of Puebla, Mexico. Fighting to get out, fighting to survive, kicking in the door. I was definitely too young to carry out for foe. Then the struggle starts. Blessed to be brown, cursed to be from the part of town where people believe you can make it out. New York, New York, read all about it. That's when we started pouring in and out. Latinoamericanos y muchos mexicanos, para los pinches gringos una bola de enanos. Labor markets started to skyrocket, quality of life can't even talk about it. Racing for the cheddar, 60-hour shifts, can't forget the chela para olvidar las penas allá en nuestras tierras. Not enough to slang, old enough to peep some of the shit that we have seen was definitely unreal, bringing brightness to all my people hiding in the closets. Life definitely kept passing, wishing we could use our magic to change some of the tragic shit that had happened. One way was rapping, banging, and definitely not stopping. Si tú quieres ir a guerra, la neta no me importa, peleando por la feria. Eres una presa de esas que ni siquiera vale la pena. Toma tu pedazo del sueño americano. Mis respetos para Pablo, Fidel y hasta Chapo. Gacho cuando tienes que comer de la basura y esas condiciones vuelven a la gente astuta. Promesas del gobierno, esa mierda me insulta. Todo empieza con una pieza, los tiempos cambian cuando uno reza. Cansados de promesa, ahora nos toca unirnos con la fuerza de la madre tierra. Y estas rimas a mí me liberan. No cambies de canal, esto apenas empieza. La vida es bonita, es una belleza llena de tristezas, mocos para las fresas, fuerza para las compas cholas, fighting for the right to take or give a life, morally correct. Fuck that shit, we're talking about respect. And to the president-elect, you best pray that we forgive, cause we never gonna forget. Politically correct, fuck that shit, ain't gonna make things change. Ground in action with with prayer, fighting fire with water, spreading wings in the air, all the way up, rooted in the ground, all the way down, that's where courage is found. Sounds and lyrics, emotions and physics, false prophets, we call them when we need them. Phone calls unanswered, prayers don't reach them. Making noise is easy, fighting pigs gets greasy. Making noise is easy, fighting pigs gets greasy. Still we be chasing after the time that doesn't exist. Out here in the streets, hard as hell to find your peace. Dreams to make it big, reaching for the bricks. Try and stay up at the Ritz, saying fuck to John Smith, but for now running to serve the beers. In the back we keep saying cheers, salud, salud, and this one's for you. Salud, salud, and this one's for you.
When it comes to mornings, Wendy's is always the right.
Thank you. So yeah, one of the appreciate it. Thank you everybody. One of the first songs again talking about the conditions at work and sort of seeing a lot of young people at work, hustling to try to like go to college or to make ends meet is definitely something that's been part of my experience. And so yeah, one of the first instances of organizing that I've had was at the restaurant where I met Melissa, and we definitely realized we were getting our tips stolen, and so we were able to just meet. And just like the thought of the employers thought that the workers were meeting and coming together to demand something that was theirs scared the crap out of them, and we were able to get our tips back. And so that was one. It was a really small restaurant, but that for me is an example today to what the power of workers and when people in general, and any kind of people, through different divisions, different ethnicities, when we come together, it's really powerful, and especially when we demand justice, right, in different ways. So that is something that I still carry with me as an example, and I still currently, again, still organizing workers, and I feel like very hopeful because, yeah, I think we're definitely a majority. I think Melissa pointed out in the book, we're definitely a majority, and just thinking about how unrepresented we are, thinking about like California and how that happened over there, and back in the days when we weren't citizens or we were not treated as citizens over there. But the political power and all these mechanisms that are used to suppress us, definitely they see their numbers, and especially like newer generations coming, newer people, younger people that are, a lot of, I have siblings that are very young. I have my daughter. And so I'm very hopeful for sort of what the future holds, right? Because I feel, and I think, and not to sound cliche, but with great power comes great responsibility, not to also overlook other communities, right? I think like one of the biggest groups that's overlooked is Black immigrants, right? One of the biggest deported groups of immigrants. When we also like something that Audrey mentioned, things that we don't talk about is also really important. So with our numbers, hopefully we can also bring light to our Central American brothers, to our Haitian brothers, or African brothers that are immigrants as well, because that way I think things change for the better. So I'm gonna do one last song before I pass over the mic, and just give me 1 second. Apologize, technical difficulties.
Chida, bacana.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, my Wi-Fi. Okay, here it goes. Sorry about that.
Tu
Ponme a trabajar, sinónimo de esclavizar mi ánimo. Quieres robar, tus bolsillos engordar. Cansado de sudar, empezaremos a cambiar. Le llamo organizar, ya vi tu juego chueco. Divide y conquista, te voy siguiendo la pista. Boricuas y guanacos, México-americanos. El negro contra el blanco, ya no voy a pelear con todos mis paisanos. Te digo y te repito, ya estamos cansados. Un mejor mañana estamos formulando. Bueno, pues claro, esto no te está gustando. Bien cómodo has quedado. Well, you know we had to step up to the plate. Coming out so late, we barely saw a day with our families to spend. Let's not talk about the rent. We barely saw a cent of the 100% labor we put in. Still we sing and smile. We taking you to trial. You must be in denial. Redistribution of wealth doesn't look too well. Oh well, what's that I smell? Fear up in your eyes when the workers uprise. Tired of just getting by. Sayonara, adieu, mon Dieu. We coming through to take over. Capitalism's day is over. Ya mero está el mole. Vamos a celebrar que hay una nueva orden dictada por nosotros. Todos o ninguno. Lo dice la calle de donde vengo yo. Ejemplo nos dejaron el 1 de mayo. No se lo inventaron. Cansados del retraso de los tiempos de ayer. El sistema del esclavo ha evolucionado, pero no los salarios. Algo necesario. Llegó su empresario de las rimas del cambio. No me llamen un sabio. Soy solo un soldado de lo justo y necesario. Mario, Luigi y la princesa se sentaron en una mesa, formaron la estrategia, a Cooper lo mandaron a la verga, beta, alfa y omega, you better listen to the wetbacks, our experiences go way back, the Chinese working in the tracks, braceros breaking out their backs, Black America was shutting down the docks, labor is power and labor is ours, don't let them misguide us, nothing about us without us is for us, becoming notorious, not like B.I.G., more like shifting the powers that be. You feel me beat, let's be on some serious shit after your shift. Let's shut down some shit, our presence gon' be felt. The few with the wealth have never dealt with workers with strength, power and numbers, fallacy and borders, solidarity with the people crossing the borders, disrupting the order. Welcome to Good Border, home of the good worker. Can I take your order? Not for too long. I fight for 15 is what I want to see. Can I count you in? Let the uprising begin. Can I count you in? Let the uprising begin. Thank you. Thanks everybody. Yeah, just appreciate it. Again, once again, thank you for everybody's time and for everybody that put this great program together. I'm gonna pass over the mic to Melissa. Thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, for sharing your experience and your music to both of you. So I think, Saralinda, we were just going to maybe touch on, if there's any questions, obviously you can put them in the chat, but we just wanted to touch on kind of what it's been like during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? As Audrey, as an artist, I will say, just for myself to get things kicked off, you know, I felt like I was really starting to build something at Lehman College. I moved there in 2018 as an assistant professor, and it started, organizing with students, the Latinx Student Alliance, advocating for curriculum change, for more representation, bringing great guests like Audrey Funk, right? And trying to, really put more of a spotlight on, the Latino contributions to the Bronx, and that. So, I feel like that's stalled in a way in a year, and we're kind of in this waiting pattern. I do have was able to do some poetry work, personal individual poetry work, as a writer myself, and I'm, having a book. I guess it would be, if we're still considered in the pandemic in August, it would be a second book to come out in the pandemic, which is, it's very difficult to get the book into the community that you want it to. So thank you again for this program. But I don't know about you guys, but I miss my community, right?
Yes. Yes, for me, COVID, well, I think not for me, for the entire world, COVID has been like I think a struggle, but I think COVID bring a lot of stuff that we are missing, like as like society, I guess. And this system, I think, is not working at all in this kind of, emergency like a pandemic, right? But also I think, like, as an artist, I have a bunch of questions, like why we are not organized well enough to have something to support us. Like, for example, we are freelancers, right? I live through my concerts. I'm a performer and artist, right? So I live by that money. Like, okay, I perform, they pay me, but I don't have anything like a union, I don't know, right? Or something like really have, yeah, exactly, like to organize, because I mean, art is a labor also, right? And we have to start to see art as a real work. It's not something like is your passion or your hobby. It's a real work that you really have uh to have some strategies, like to protect the members of this community, that, by the way, it's a lot of us, right? A bunch of my friends, they don't have work. Of course, I don't have a job through the music. I have some online concerts or whatever, but it's not enough. Like, and not in New York. If I live in Mexico, maybe if I receive that money in dollars, maybe I can handle it a little bit. Plus, I'm an artist. Plus, I live in New York, one of the most expensive cities in the world. And this pandemic, of course, anything going down, right? Even the rent, they don't have rent control. They asking entire rent. Thank the goddess. My husband has work. I find a job. I work now in a different thing. No, I don't work in music. I work in a pharmacy, right? So I'm working. I have a job. Thank you. I know it's very different, but I don't have anything through the art, and that make me really really understand that we need to be more organized. Not only, aspire to be famous, or have a bunch of reproductions, or have a bunch of followers. Who gonna take care of me if this happen again? What is going to happen if another pandemic, hopefully no, but so anything going to happen, after this could happen. So we need to organize more as a creatives. So yeah, that is the only thing that I really shocks me. Like, we are not really in that. We don't have anything to support us. We don't have a social security. We don't have, I don't know if we aspire as like for retirement and all that, right? I don't even have, I have healthcare because now I have my documents, right? But as an artist, like, have some organization to protect me, I don't have anything. So maybe it's time to do that as an artist. It's the only thing that I can say.
I also, yeah, I think just like COVID has affected me in two ways, or two views that I can think of, and one of them, like, I consider myself an artist 100%, but I think like my job at like organizing is in the United States is a profession. I think is like you have the nonprofit industrial complex, which has a long history of washing money for rich people and avoiding taxes, but I think that that's very unique to the United States. I think I honestly, besides Mexico, I haven't been, and when I was younger, I haven't traveled since then because of lack of documentation. So, having the opportunity given to me by different jobs and organizations that I've worked for and with, I was able to travel within the United States to California, Texas, Chicago, and other states, and just meeting people from that were able to go to other countries and come from other countries and see how their work as activists doesn't necessarily have to be tied to an organization, and that's really interesting because I can't visualize that. I've tried to, and it's just really hard to survive, and also it's we live in, this is very this is a very capitalist city, I think country, but city in itself, like New York is like Wall Street, right? We have so much money here, and capital moves here in many ways, and so it's really hard. But so in that sense, one of my strategies has been to try to bring in arts, and this is, I saw this in California, how like a lot of Chicanos over there incorporate danza and indigenous tradition into their organizing, and so I would love to see something more visible like that in here in New York. And so one of the things that I miss the most pre-pandemic, it has been danza, right? It's just like it's a way of prayer, through indigenous prayer, from the Mexica people, which, you know, were called the Aztecs, but were really Mexicas, and from the region of Mexico where I come from. And so I was able to find a group here in New York, and have been practicing with them for a couple of years. But it's also very, it has been limited because of the pandemic. So that's one of the things, you know, one of the things that I think I've read about how back in the days, our ancestors, the indigenous resistance, right, from this continent, when they were fighting the cavalry, the United States cavalry, they realized, the United States realized that the shorter time they could give them to pray, to have their ceremonies, the weaker they were. And so, you know, I think about that today, and I feel very weak in like my spiritual, like, you know, strength, and because it's really hard to like be in prayer. And of course you can do it individually, but when you do it as a community, it has another, you know, very, very powerful energy to it. And so that's just something that I've, you know, missed a lot, being able to be there. And just, you know, also having my daughter, it's just really hard to like, you know, I'm just all thinking about how to like the least ways to expose her. And so, because it's very real, I believe, you know, I've seen, and you know, I when I was living in Elmhurst, right across the hospital, so I saw the sirens, I saw the trucks, and so it was really, really powerful. And so, you know, I know that it's real. So I'm also just very conscious, you know, I have parents that are elders and stuff. But yeah, I'm really hoping, you know, that we can find a way moving forward and come back to interacting with each other, because also that's very powerful.
But I love that idea that both of you guys have of, right, how do we connect the arts to organizing, right? You know, both to support artists, right, in our communities, but also to share arts in our communities, right? So
it's let's see, it's a little bit after 3.
time flies when you're having fun.
I know. We've been having fun since before we started. And I'm looking in the chat. I don't see any questions, but there was a comment earlier, and I loved it. And this was from Ade Zamorano. Please translate that song, Audrey. We need it. And I think, you know, listening to Audrey, listening to Juan Carlos, I love how you slide from English to Spanish to English, and it really is helpful. And Audrey, your lyrics are so impassioned that even for those of us who are not Spanish speakers, it's easy to understand. But it would be wonderful to actually hear, or, you know, or have to read the lyrics in English as well. Just so really, really powerful messages from both of you. And, you know, Melissa, the idea of the fragility of human life and the vulnerabilities that the pandemic has exposed have been real for everyone to varying degrees. And, you know, marginalized communities, obviously, we know have suffered the most. And, you know, we could have a lengthy political discussion about the social safety net and lack thereof in this country. But I think it has brought the plight of people with no safety net to a little bit closer to the front of people's minds. And I am hopeful that with the new administration and with continued activism on the part of people like you, all of you, you know, from your particular pulpits, you know, that people realize what has to be done in order to really enact the social contract in this country and to help people across the world. I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts, Melissa?
My final thought is I just wanted to thank you, not just for this program, but for the whole Border, Border
Cantos.
program.
Yeah.
I highly recommend. I've gone to a couple of the events. It's a wonderful series, and it's still going on. I think you put some information in the chat, right?
I did. Thank you. Yes. So you can go to our calendar, and there's a link there. And then I just put, you know, just little snippets about the next few programs that are coming up in the next couple of weeks, which really, everything connects, and everything connects to our exhibit, Border Cantos, Sonic Border, which was supported by Art Bridges, that also supports the programs that we're doing. It's a wonderful foundation. And next week we have a studio visit to Javier Marin, who was actually in Mexico City, coming to you live from Mexico City. And that program will actually be in Spanish with English interpretation. And that's going to be a wonderful program about his work and the work that his foundation is doing with the Fábrica de San Pedro Cultural Center. Then we have a roundtable of leaders from in the Westchester area about how they work with our migrant communities. And that's going to be on the 14th. And then I have an ACLU attorney from San Diego and a representative of a humanitarian group that works across the border with migrant population, talking about the situation at the border right now. And we go on through the end of the exhibit, which is May 9th. And actually on May 9th, we are having a mariachi concert in our outdoor amphitheater. It's going to be a free performance, so stay tuned. It will be on our website soon. But I want to thank you, Melissa, and Audrey, Juan Carlos, Maria, our translator, and Olivia, everyone here who made this program possible today. Thank you so much. We had so much fun, and I hope that you all will come and visit us at the museum. And we are open Thursdays through Sundays, and hope to welcome you and those of you in the audience who can make it up. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful, beautiful day, and